So the last video cut us off a little bit. We were talking about graphical displays, and we talked about none of your data is qualitative. It's all quantitative. Okay, it might be discrete or continuous. That's something that you need to find out. There are lots of lectures. There's some resources out there as well online that you can look at. So let's go into chapter 4. Since your data is not qualitative, you should be looking at quantitative data. Right here it talks about the displays, how to make a histogram. Stem and leaf plot, you don't have enough data. And if it's continuous, it's awfully hard. You can, but it's awfully hard to put in a stem and leaf. So you need to go back and determine which display you're going to make. If you are to make a histogram, if I go into the homework and I look, right here is a link to making a histogram. If you go back and listen to the lecture, the histogram, there is not a set number of bins or classes that you need to decide upon. However, 1 and 2 is not enough. 3 is barely. You need probably about 5 because part of your project for your midterm says that you need to describe the distribution. You describe a distribution from the histogram. Is it symmetric, skewed right, skewed left, and what does that mean? Don't just say symmetric. What does symmetry mean? What does it look like? What does it have? What characteristics does it have for you to answer symmetric? Let's look at chapter 5, homework. It included numerical summaries. This will also be part of your midterm project. You had to calculate measures of center. So let's go look in the course about measures of center because some of you are reporting measures of center that are not appropriate for the type of data that you have. So in chapter 5, scrolling down to looking at measures of center, okay, there is a lecture about measures of center. And if you go ahead and listen to that lecture, I'm going to fast forward it. You're willing or able to do the same thing. I'm going to go all the way down. Many of you included a measure of center. And if you look right here on the screen, it says the mode is good for qualitative data. You don't have qualitative data, don't include it. Okay, some of you included like the geometric mean. If you know what that is and can apply it to the product that you have, great, report it. If you don't know what it means, it was not on the sheet, you don't need to know what it is. That's a higher level stats course terminology. Don't include anything you don't know. Okay, you should know everything that's on the midterm list of items to include. If you don't, you should go find that because that's something that we covered in class and it will help you get ready for your midterm exam. So that's a measure of center. Measures of variation. So once again, I would not include measures that we have not talked about. So if I go back and look at chapter 5 and look at measures of variation, if you're not sure about distribution, there's a lecture, measures of variation. And if you listen to the lecture at the very beginning, it talks about this measures of variation called standard deviation. It's a measure of variation that we use the most often. That's what I say in the video. Probably the one you want to include. There are other measures of variation. One on here is the variance, and you'll listen to an example that says, variance isn't needed for what we're looking at. It comes down later in more advanced statistical classes and studies. We don't need to include variation. Also, some of you reported the range. So if you go find range, which is also, I believe it is at the end of maybe this distribution lecture, but there is this thing called the range. Okay, some of you also included a 5-number summary, which is great. It asks for that, but do something with it. Do something with your 5-number summary. So there is a thing on range here that talks about, and it says largest minus smallest, great. Okay, somebody included something called the mid-range. I'm not really sure what meaningful information that's going to provide you on this product, but if you can come up with something, great, report it. Notice this range says weather. None of you are dealing with weather. Don't report the range. Many of you reported the 5-number summary. Great, you need that to determine your outliers. But it also shows you something. Don't just report something just because it's on there. You have to explain what it means in context of the product that you're looking at. Okay, there's got to be a meaningful reason of why you are including it. More is not better. Okay, we don't want you to just to put some things down just because You wanted to make your report longer or look like you knew something more than what we had done in the class. Don't do that, okay? Also, you need to report, your report needs to look like the format that we have here. So we just got done talking about the outliers, measure variation, and then which measure of center is best. Some of you said mean. Well, that's not going to get you very many points because it's the reasoning behind it that we are most interested in. Okay, the summary. Okay, statistical significance is huge. Okay, if you go back to the course, you will find that in chapter 1. It talks a lot about statistically significant. You need to back it up with displays, with numbers, something that supports what you are thinking about subjectively. Right now, it's just your opinion whether you're going to accept or reject, support or not support. And this goes right through the idea of what statistical significance is and what it means and how to report it. So please go back through, look at the lectures, write your report as it's laid out in the directions. Don't include anything extra. Okay, you don't have that much time to put into it. Okay, if you have questions, feel free to email me and I'll try to get back to you in a reasonable amount of time.